We asked Gary earlier for his team of the year. This is what we went for. And I think Gary's had quite a reaction on social media already to one or two of those choices. What did it come down to for player of the year, though?
Player of the year, it was just down to the two for me that everyone's been discussing, Salah and De Bruyne. And, you know, you couldn't argue with either. What I did disagree with was some of the sentiment that came out after the PFA award. You know, how could you give it to Salah? How could you give it to De Bruyne? The individual opinion of a person of who their player of the year is or who their team of the year is can never be incorrect. It's one person's opinion. So you're in a change room, I've had those ballot forms through, and you just do what you feel is the right thing to do. Unless you're tactically voting and you're dismissing someone from a club. But the reality of it is you wouldn't get that in the United dressing room. They would vote for who they believe to be the best player. And for me this season all the way through, Salah is absolutely incredible. But I've always stayed with De Bruyne because he has brought a level of quality into the Premier League this season that you very rarely see. You very rarely see. Passes, controlling of a football match. I know I've used this before in certain other players. The ability to control a football match, the ability to actually make David Silva look like the second best central midfield player in Manchester City's team, which is some statement because he's an incredible player. But there aren't many players who can control the tempo of a match. And you think about Pep Guardiola's team this season, and people are saying it's the greatest ever performance from a team in the Premier League season. If he'd have been taken out of it, I don't think it would have happened. I think he's that big. And if we're saying that this team has reached a new height in terms of an individual season, which I can't disagree with, and the 73% possession, you've then got to reflect upon the people who have created that. And for me this season, De Bruyne has scored goals, he's assisted goals, he's controlled the tempo of football matches, he's done everything that you would ask. He's actually, to be fair, been out of possession excellent as well. You know, I've watched, unfortunately, City a lot this season. I must have watched him about 25, 30 times. His reaction to giving the ball away is now fantastic. So for me, he's shown us a quality that you would want to see. I think that when we had midfield players in the league like Scholes and Keane and Vieira, Petit, Gerrard, Lampard, we had umpteen great midfield players. I don't see the great midfield players of that quality in this league now, but we have one. And David Silva's in there. We have one in Kevin De Bruyne. And to me, it's just a different level of quality. Salah has been the most impactful, incredible season, scored goal after goal, has done far better than I ever thought he would do. You know, I think he's a really good player. And he's shown this season that he could be a great player. But for me, De Bruyne's world class.
I have to say it's a very convincing argument. Let's see if the public have agreed with you, Gary, because they had the opportunity to vote on Twitter.
Well, you never win a vote against Liverpool fans. I mean, absolutely no chance.
OK, so they're not backing you there.
No chance.
But would you give him the signing of the season?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Absolutely
the signing of the season. And this season's still going on for Liverpool. Not just in terms of confirming the top four, but also the opportunity this week to get into a Champions League final. For me, definitely sign of the season. He fits what Jurgen Klopp... Jurgen Klopp deserves some great credit because what he does is sign players that fit his model in terms of what he wants, and he will not move from that. And Salah fits it perfectly. Those runs that he makes through, it would be a nightmare to play against. Being an ex-full-back, you know, it'd been horrible to play against him. He makes the right movements all the time. And definitely signed this season, the biggest impact of any player that was signed last summer. Let's see if the public agree with that one then.
Yeah, pretty unanimous. They were the four choices that we gave you. They've certainly had big impact, the others, but none quite in the same way as Mo Salah. And as Gary says, his season still has got plenty of big games to run as well. What about young player of the season then, Gary?
No-brainer, Sane. No-brainer. The player that I think who is a young player that is most likely to go on to become one of the top players in the world, in my opinion, in terms of just... nothing phases him. He beats players that you can attack from one box to the other. used to think about the sort of counter-attack goals of, say, Thierry Henry or Cristiano Ronaldo or Ryan Giggs. You're getting from one box to the other in seconds to be able to deliver goals. The ability to beat people, his out of possession work's good, his positions are now really clever, his movements in good, his improvement year on year, and I just don't see him getting any, I don't see him dropping.
Where does this game go next, do you think, then?
More goals, more assists. You think of Iron Robin. I think that to me is if you were looking at a player that you would want to emulate if you were Sané, it would be Iron Robin. I think he's more like that than Ryan Giggs in terms of his style. So I'd say Iron Robin is somebody that's excelled at the top of his game. He's become a top goal scorer, can win the biggest trophies, win the biggest matches, play in the best teams, and to me, Sané is somebody that can go on to that level.
So maybe in the future might be more dangerous playing on the other side, potentially?
Yeah, I think he's got the ability to do that. I think he's got the ability to even... he does go central from a wide position. I think he is more of a player who will play from out to in. I don't think you'll see him too much going from in to out. I think Raheem Sterling could move more inside. But I see Sané still as somebody who works predominantly from out to in rather than sort of in to out.
OK, well, it's a good team that we've seen, good young player as well. So who would be the manager? Would that be a straightforward choice?
It's painful, as you know. I'm just realising what's happening.
We need to rename these awards, the City Awards of the season.
Yeah, there are a few contention. I think Roy Hodgson deserves a mention for the job that he's done at Crystal Palace. I think Sean Dyche comes very close. I think Maurizio Pochettino, budget and spend. We talked about it before the show to achieve that level of consistency. I think Jurgen Klopp has had a great season. If they're going to win the Champions League, then you could actually argue it could be Jurgen Klopp. But I think we have to wait and see whether they do that yet. To pray a little bit. But I have to say, at this moment, as I sit here now, it's Pep Guardiola. Just for the outstanding football that City have produced and winning the league and the Carabao Cup, 2 trophies. Jose Mourinho will also count himself as having a good season, decent season, not by his really high standards of Champions Leagues and leagues, if he wins the FA Cup and the second in the league. So the season's not finished yet. There are a couple of managers who can go up a notch in terms of winning trophies and what they'll do. And obviously, if Jurgen Klopp was to win the Champions League, you are then a really close second, but let's hope.
Don't worry about that.
Yeah,
big public response on this. Almost 50,000 of you voted on this, and it was really close, the outcome as well. And actually, Pep Guardiola has been edged out by Sean Dyche. Can you understand why that might be the case?
I can absolutely understand why that might be. I think there'll be people who'll say that the budget that Sean's working with at Burnley is a pittance compared to what Pep Guardiola's working with. So I could absolutely agree that he has excelled and overachieved. And I can't argue with it. I can't argue with it at all. I mean, it could easily be somebody that you could vouch for. I mean, 7th in the league, Burnley, like I say, the budget will be maybe the bottom in the league. It'll be
certainly down there. I think the interesting thing, Gary, as well, it looked like that they'd peaked and then suddenly on that run of games without winning, only to find their feet again.
Well, if you look at what we've talked about Watford tonight, and there have been many clubs over the years that have done this, where they basically get safe and the target's reached and then they dip. Burnley haven't. And that is a big, big thing, to be able to maintain and go again and have that consistency, go through the difficult periods. And like you say, I come back to the fact that you look at the players that he's working with, he's absolutely maximising everything out of those players. And that is the job of the coach. The coach can't change the budget of a football club. The coach can change the performance of the players. And Sean Dyche gets the best out of those players every single time. I go and watch them, and I'm sure there are people who watch them more.
European football for Burnley to look forward to next season. Next City category is most improved player.
It's... the most improved player is Raheem Sterling, without a shadow of a doubt. I think I made my point on him a couple of weeks ago, that the leap in goals and assists, I didn't think he was capable of that level of performance. So for me, it is Raheem Sterling. I could have gone for De Bruyne actually as well. There's been some big shifts in performance levels. Otamendi even a big shift, even though he wasn't in my team, but it's a big shift from where he was.
The public tried to have their say, and I think there was a large section of Manchester that was trying to take this away from Raheem Sterling. Jesse Lingard, second in the vote for most improved player. Wilfried Zaha's been, well, so strong, so important for Crystal Palace, and Son has certainly contributed hugely for Spurs as well. But what about Jesse Lingard in that category, Gary, as the most improved player?
It's interesting because probably a year or so ago, you know, Manchester United fans, certainly some on social media, oh, he's not good enough to play for Manchester United, or he hasn't got the quality. And you think of the players who've got more talent in that squad. Pogba, Martial, Mata, Rashford, got more talent, more natural talent. Lukaku, Mkhitaryan, more natural talent, I would say. But then what Jesse Lingard has is an incredible ability to make good runs, make the right runs. He reminds me of the job that Ji-sung Park did for Manchester United for so long. The ability to make other players around him better, the players to fill the voids and do the things that others won't quite do. And I think he's needed in that team. Jose Mourinho has needed him in that team as a balance to the players who, to be fair, probably don't make the same frequency of runs in behind at the same speed, that don't have the same, I'm going to say it, work ethic. He has an incredible work ethic on and off the ball. He's a great lad. He's come right the way through the ranks. And he's a big, big player for United. He's won them big, big games as well. And to me, you know, I'm delighted for him. And to be fair, Jose Mourinho's done a great job with him and having faith in him and believing in him at times when it's been difficult, when you could argue there are more talented players.